Good morning, I'm Will, and I'm very excited to be here. Thanks for coming out today. I'm going to give you a lot of information, but I run the French Broad River Academy, which is an independent middle school serving grades 6th, 7th, and 8th. And I'm going to talk more about the program, but we have 2 campuses, split gender programming along the French Broad River in Woodfin. We're going to dive into this. Our mission is to build character and integrity for a lifetime of learning, service, and adventure. And I want to start with my name. You'll notice my initials. They form a certain word, and storytelling, I think, is where it's at. And so I want to start with why. Simon Sinek, the author, teaches us to start with why. A lot of businesses, organizations start with the what or the how. We're going to do a deep dive into why. And then I'm going to try to create a space for some questions and answers and talk about some exciting developments in Woodfin. So here we go. My family informs a lot of my work and the program and our mission statement. My aunt, uncle, my great-grandmother were all teachers. They also, my great-grandfather, Dr. Charles Madison Stratt, was a math professor at Vanderbilt University, and he was liked by the students so much that he then became the dean of students, and my children are pictured here with him at the Stratt Student Center, which was dedicated after him. My mom attended there as well. She was a student, pictured here with my great-great-grandfather. And my brother is seen here climbing on the stage at the dedication. He attended there as well. And my dad played football there, and I learned at a very early age that it's tough to be an SEC football fan if you go to Vanderbilt, but we're working through it.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. So at the Stratt Student Center, there's a plaque, and on that plaque is a quote, and it says, "Today I'm going to give you 2 examinations, one in trigonometry and one in honesty. I hope you'll pass them both, but if you must fail one, let it be trigonometry." So this idea that your character, your integrity, that honesty supersedes academics resonated with me from an early age and will come into play when we talk more about the school and our mission statement. My camp experience really informs a lot of our program and what we do as well. I spent my summers at Camp Mondamin paddling. I was a camper, a counselor there. This is me with my very first cabin of campers there. And while I was there, I really grew to love working with children, and I also fell in love with the outdoors, specifically whitewater paddling. I would go canoeing, kayaking, every chance I got, and really came to love that. I also met Dr. Gordon Grant, longtime friend, mentor, and educator. He was the head of paddling my first summer on staff at Camp Mondamin, and I also worked with him at Asheville City Schools when I was a teacher at Asheville Middle School, so I'll talk about that more in just a moment. And another quote that really informs my life's work really is based on the founder, Frank Bell Sr., also known as Chief, and he said, "If education is instead a series of continuing experiences that build the knowledge, the skills, the habits, the appreciations, the attitudes, the values, and ultimately and hopefully the wisdom that enrich living, then we need to go far beyond the classroom." So traditional academic education definitions often just deal with the work in the classroom, but I took this idea of going far beyond the classroom to heart, and I'll talk about that more in just a minute. And then my middle school experience was an unbelievable, unique thing. During the middle of my 5th grade year, coming from Dallas Public Schools, we moved to Porto, Portugal, and it was a life-changing experience. We traveled all over Europe, weekend ventures into Spain, France, Germany, Italy, saw monuments, ruins, priceless works of art. But the part that was really unique and special about that experience was I attended the Porto British School, which was right there in downtown Porto, and it was really more of an international school. And while I was there, I befriended people from India, Zimbabwe, Holland, Slovakia. The list goes on and on. It was such an incredible international community, and it taught me how to connect and build community with people from different backgrounds, language, religion. It was just an unbelievable experience, and here I am with some of my friends just outside the school. There's me at awkward 7th grade age, and this was transformed my worldview and really inspired me to recreate some of that in what we do with our international program in our work in Costa Rica. Okay, So my undergrad experience, I followed in my family's footsteps, went to Vanderbilt. I studied language, and I also majored in Latin American studies, but I got involved with a group called Alternative Spring Break. And instead of going to the beach in Cancun or skiing in Colorado or wherever, I would spend my spring breaks doing service work. And I did that for 3 years and became such a fan of that. I just enjoyed it so much that my junior year, I led a group of students to inner city Detroit, and we worked with the public school system there. And that was my first exposure to education and the achievement gap and some of the educational inequity issues in our system that comes into play later. And then post-graduation, I graduated in 1997 and promptly moved out to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and began to work as a professional ski instructor for Jackson Hole Mountain Resort. And I taught kayaking in a local kayak school and did some racing. And here's a picture of me skiing in the backcountry with my then girlfriend and now wife, seated right there. And then after several years, I decided to get into education, so I applied for it and was accepted into the Teach for America program and was placed in eastern North Carolina, just north of Raleigh in Warren County. And that was a really difficult 2 years of teaching, but I'm very proud that one of my big goals was to get some students beyond the classroom, per the quote that I shared earlier. And we took a group of students to Washington, D.C. to participate in the Urban Debate League. And that was really my first experiment of sort of combining outdoor education, or at least getting out of the classroom with public education. And then I applied for and was accepted for a teaching position here in Asheville at KIPP Asheville Youth Academy, where I taught language arts and Spanish for a year. And unfortunately, that program is no longer running here in Asheville. But I transitioned to Asheville City Schools and taught at Asheville Middle School. And that's where I really got to use my lab and put some of my ideas to the test. And I started to get some attention as a Spanish teacher. And I also formed a club and got kids outside on the rivers. We built rain gardens, we did river cleanups, we did all sorts of river-related things once a month. And I also started taking my students to Costa Rica not for like a team tour of tourist sites, but we would go to rural Peace Corps sites and do a homestay and do service work for the trip. And this is a picture of the co-founder, David Byers, with a group of students on the Rio Pacuare. And there was an organic push from a lot of the parents that I was teaching, and they said, we want more of this, scale it up. I talked to my principals, tried to see if we could start a school within a school. I ran into kind of a brick wall, so I started thinking, there's a successful independent middle school for girls called Hanger Hall in the area. I began reading a book about the benefits of split gender education. I thought about my great-grandfather's quote. And I also thought about the chief's quote about going far beyond the classroom. And Costa Rica, I had this successful program taking kids down there, and I had the skill set to teach whitewater paddling and to teach skiing. And I thought about this hedgehog concept, which I'll talk about more if I have time. And so this all really led to the formation of the French Broad River Academy. And so I applied for it and was accepted to Harvard Graduate School of Education. Completed that. I'm going quickly, but we completed that program. Recruited 6 students, secured some abandoned warehouse space in the River Arts District in 2009. Got a donated Pontiac minivan and began teaching. Began trip leading. These are the very first trips we did. We did overnight trips. We did Costa Rica trips, and we grew. We soon filled out our school and program, and now we operate. And then in 2015, there was such a demand from our parents for the girls. We want you to instill confidence and inspire these girls. So in 2015, Jen Horshman and her staff started our girls program, which grew quickly and filled out within 3 years as well. And I want to just sort of summarize that this program is really a result of my life experiences combined with a unique skill set that I possess from my outdoor world, plus my academic background, plus just really focusing on the next right thing. I was not focused as a 14-year-old. One day I'll start a river-based middle school for boys. That was never in the deck of cards, but it just was the next right thing. There's some exciting things happening, but Sean, should I stop and pop? Are we okay? Keep going. Okay. So you've probably heard about the Woodfin Blueway Greenway. There are 2 campuses that I mentioned before. Our north campus is where our boys program is, and our south campus is where the girls program is. And smack dab between the 2 schools, the artificial whitewater way will be constructed, should be finished by this time next year. And for a river-based middle school program, this couldn't get any better. It actually does get slightly better. There will be also a greenway that will connect the two campuses. And so from our north campus here, all the way to the south campus, we will have town and county maintained parks, green space, and a whitewater way, which will be instrumental to our instructional program and curriculum. Here's an example of a transformation of a former industrial site into a green park that will feature, like I said, this whitewater way feature. And we're very, very excited about these developments. I'm sure you've heard and seen this in the newspapers and so forth. Another exciting development is we are launching El Puente, or the bridge, and that is going to be our first ever 9th grade only high school program, where we will be bridging middle and high school. We'll be bridging our two split gender programs, so it'll be coeducational, boys and girls, and we'll be bridging our two communities in Asheville and Peje Valle in Costa Rica. We've been going to this community since 2006, and we know them very well. And it's going to be 9th grade starting 2023-24. They'll spend the fall semester in Asheville, spring semester in Costa Rica. Coeducational, as I mentioned, honors level classes with advanced Spanish, and a robust outdoor program. And the last piece I want to talk about is we're working with local architect Robert Todd, whose office is just right over there, to develop our South Campus. In addition to an academic building, we will be designing an events center to take advantage of the river views, and this will be an asset for our community. We hope to have that be our endowment effort and generate funds so we can stabilize tuition and retain teachers and some other goals. But we also want it to be an asset for the community, for local nonprofits and other folks, because as we know, schools are empty during the summer, and this is an exciting development too. Just time check. I want to make sure I'm not going over. Keep going.
Let's wrap it.
Okay, I'll maybe stop right there, but if there are any questions at this time, I can answer those, or you can call.
Okay, did you get all that? Well, now it's time to drill in and get more details on all this. As you've seen, there's no shortage of ideas coming out of this place. So what are your thoughts? Let me get over here.
Love it. This is great. The first time I knew you guys existed, I was actually fishing on the French Broad in my boat, and all these kids start like doing races in canoes or something. I was like, "What is this place?" That was awesome. I'm gonna throw you a softball because I can tell you want to talk about this. So,
Sure.
What is the hedgehog?
Okay. Thank you. So, I actually saw this book on someone's bookshelf right outside there, but if you have not read Jim Collins or Good to Great, I highly recommend it, and there's a ton of amazing ideas, but the hedgehog concept means thinking about these three circles. And I thought, I am passionate about working with kids and inspiring and empowering them. That is my jam. That's what wakes me up in the morning. What can I get paid for? Well, teaching does pay, so I could look at teaching as a possibility. And then you have to think about what can you be the best in the world at. And so I don't profess to be the best Spanish teacher in the world. I don't claim to be the best whitewater or ski instructor in the world. And I don't claim to be the best international trip leader in the world. But I felt very strongly that I could start a successful middle school with an outdoor program focused on whitewater, deep Spanish language and cultural immersion, international skills, and I felt like I could do that better than anyone else in the world and sort of specialize in that. So once again, when I kind of thought about the three circles, they formulate, I arrived at the hedgehog concept was the French Broad River Academy. So yeah. Thanks for the softball.
Hi, as the parent of a graduating 8th grader, are you expecting most of your 9th graders will come from your existing program? Because I'm trying to think about how I could convince her to divorce with all her friends and go do this. It sounds awesome.
We are giving our current families the current period of time until really the end of this month to apply, and then if there are spaces available after that time, we will open that up to the public, and we'll be doing some marketing and advertising and recruitment for those spots. So yes, the student would need to have some level of Spanish because they're going to start with Spanish 2 immediately. So, but yes, great question.
So this is a two-part question. Why middle school emphasis, and did you know that Whitewater Waves was going to be bisecting the two campuses when you selected the sites?
I never really, like many, I kind of resisted middle school, but when I was accepted into Teach for America, they placed me at Warren County Middle School, and I quickly fell in love with middle school. I always say, by high school, the concrete sets up, but middle schoolers are impressionable, and you can really impact them. You can do that in high school and elementary school too, but the variation, the different things that happen in middle school are purely magical, and I feel like middle school gets a bad rap, and I became determined to flip that script and change that narrative, and these are going to be the best years of your life. These are going to be unforgettable experiences, and people say wait till college to study abroad, or maybe high school. As I shared earlier, my middle school experience transformed my life, and when I moved back to Dallas Public Schools after living in Portugal, I couldn't relate to my peers or a lot of my teachers because I was like, you don't understand the world or things, so it really just changed my whole perspective. I did not know anything about the Greenway or the Whitewater Wave when we, and the land we got was donated by a local business. It just was all coincidence, but it couldn't have set up any better. I couldn't have even dreamt that scenario, so it's pretty awesome. And we're very excited. We just hosted a Buncombe County event last week to have like an info session where we're doing everything we can to facilitate that process and help make it happen any way we can.
The question I have is based on some personal experience, but I'd love to know how you're handling it. But it seems like it was over 100 years ago that my kids went to a charter school, and when they transitioned from the charter school back then, it was limited. I went up to 5th grade. Then they had to go back into the public school system, and it was a bit of a transition for them getting back, and it took them a little time to kind of get grounded. With this being a middle school, you've got kids coming from somewhere before and going somewhere after. How do you guys work with helping them transition and make that?
Yeah, great question. The vast majority of our students come from public middle school and go back to public high school. So we found over the years that our students transition very well into whichever school they pursue next. They're really well prepared. I do acknowledge that the split gender experience is when they get into a public co-ed high school setting, there's some novelty and kind of wow. And one reason we're doing the El Puente 9th grade program is to sort of take our students that have these incredible shared experiences and then have them in a co-ed setting. And we increasingly are doing co-ed activities, like tomorrow, as a matter of fact, we're having a school-wide co-ed seminar where both programs will be selecting an academic topic and doing a deep dive into that. There's a square dance this Friday. So we have co-ed activities. I think we could be more intentional perhaps with preparing them to transition into high school in some areas, but I think overall we do a really good job because, like I said, most of them come from public school background. They know a lot of friends, peers in the community, so when they go on to whichever school, they do really well. And yeah, they're very well prepared for the workload. 9th grade year is often kind of easy for a lot of our students, so another reason we're doing an El Puente is to kind of keep the momentum and keep things moving forward.
Hi, I love what you're doing, and I love your mission. Thank you for sharing your story. Could you talk about academics? You went to Harvard, so academic performance must be important to you. How have your students performed? What can you share? What are your academic goals? And do you offer differentiated instruction?
Yeah, great question. The thing that I learned, I would say that's most important about academics, I actually learned in the KIPP program, but the number one factor in determining student success is teacher expectation. They will do exactly what you expect of them, whether that's academic, behavior, or whatever. So we started the school with very high academic expectations, and I would have to share that we've actually dialed back some of our homework load and some of our workload just because we were pushing, I think, too hard in the early years of our program. But the kids are held accountable to very high academic standards. We have a 12-to-1 ratio in our classroom, so it's really hard for a kid to slip through the cracks or hide or not, for it not to be known if their grades are slipping or they didn't turn in their homework. And so there's a very high level of accountability. We differentiate by our small ratio. Our teachers know the students very well. We have what we call a range of accommodation. So if a student applied to our 6th grade year, it was on a 2nd grade reading level, we don't have specialists that could accommodate that. But if they're close to our grade level, reading level, and math level, we can accommodate them. And we do have students that have dyslexia and do very well in our program. They typically get support outside of class, but we are able to serve a variety of differentiated levels. I'm trying to think if there was another question related to that.
Academic performance?
Yeah, we do standardized testing. We actually, I think we're doing that today. We use the MAP assessment, and that shows longitudinal growth versus just a one-time end-of-year test. We look at those results. We identify holes, gaps, remediate as necessary, and we also give the Biology 1 end-of-course exam, which is what the public schools give, and the Math 1 end-of-course exam as well. And I would say over 85% of our students place out of Math 1, Biology 1, and Spanish 1. So you hear anti-testing in schools or whatever. We do believe in good testing. I wouldn't say we teach the test, but we do want to show growth and give students that opportunity to place out of those classes so they can take advantage of higher level classes in high school.
2 quick questions.
Yeah.
First is a non-sequitur, but how do you do that magnifying glass thing?
It's just the latest clicker. It's pretty cool. I've been playing around with it. So instead of a pointer, you can kind of emphasize. So yeah, it's just a feature on the Logitech clicker.
It's on the clicker, okay.
Yeah.
Great. Second question. I'm a huge fan of the pedagogy. In my middle school, we had outdoor ed. In 9th grade, I had it outward bound. So look at what you guys are doing. I love it. And when I told you to be your co-director in the hallway one day, I love what you guys do. In 10 years of my kids in middle school, I want to go to French Broad. And one of you said, well, we better start saving now. So the question is, what is tuition? Do you offer scholarships? And what does that scope look like?
Yes, tuition is $20,500, and we typically increase that by 3 to 5% a year, so it does slowly increase. We are 100% tuition driven currently. We don't receive any state or federal money, and so we do offer financial aid, but we do not currently offer any scholarships. And to me, a scholarship is ownership and responsibility of the family. So yes, we're covering tuition, but there's also the Astral footwear and the sleeping bag and everything you need to do our program. And so I didn't really get to talk about it, but one reason we're building this event center is to generate funds beyond tuition. Our number one goal for that is teacher retention. We all know the cost of living in Asheville, but our other goals that have been board approved are scholarship, dedicated to 3-year scholarships. We don't want to start something and then stop it. Increased financial aid, some environmental initiatives, and rainy day funds. So we have estimated conservatively that we can generate $300,000 to $500,000 a year through event-based rental. We're not getting into event planning or doing the events, but from rental of that space, that is our plan to stabilize tuition because it becomes a bit of an arms race.
Do staff get discounts in their kids at both private schools?
Yes, they do. Our staff get a 50% discount for tuition, so yes. Yeah.
Okay. You will.
Hey, Sean.
So, by the way, as soon as I know of an opening, I'll let you. So, a lot of people have better hamburgers than McDonald's, but in order to build a better system than McDonald's, that's a whole different thing. So, I don't want to ask a question because then you have to go through the whole thing again, but I think it's so impressive that you built this incredible school, which we know firsthand. So I guess the comment is, it's impressive that while you have all the ingredients, you were able to also take this and make this a reality. So, yeah, just a comment.
Yeah, thank you.
Good to see you again. Thanks for the presentation.
Yep.
Love what you're doing, especially that you're centered around the river, which is such a major novelty on the planet and in our community. So thanks for doing that. I'm curious how business works into the curriculum, if that's a conversation that's had, especially given that small businesses one of the key features of the economic system. And I guess the second part of that is how can we help?
Yeah, great question. We do partner with some local businesses, but I think more to your point is on these. So we do paddling we have a dedicated field lesson day, 1 day a week. So out of 5 days, Monday through Friday, Wednesday for the boys program, we're in the field. Thursday, the girls are in the field. And in the fall, that's whitewater canoeing. We do that curriculum. But right now, when the river gets cold, or when the weather gets cold and the river's too low, our students are in the field, and they do visit a lot of local businesses and do seminars on an academic theme, but they'll go to a local business. They might even come to here, Hatch, and perhaps use the space here to complete a project. I'm struggling to think of a recent example of partnering with a business. I know we've worked with Hood Huggers in the past to do the urban tour and talk about some of the redistricting in Asheville. And some other businesses. John, help me out if you think of any other. But yeah,
I think you're planning to go to Citizen Vinyl for
Citizen Vinyl and learn the record production process. Yeah, we used to tour Astral where they make PFDs and footwear, and then we would see small scale production, and then we would take them to the BMW factory down in Greenville and see here's robotic, large scale automation. Yeah, like I said, I'm struggling a little bit to think about, but we do a lot of business-based visits to tie into their economic or historic or whatever standards in academic information. That helped me slide.
I've got a question. I'm not entirely familiar with it. Quickly, sort of, what is the philosophy of the separate gender education? What are the benefits for that?
Yeah, so a lot of that came out of my camp experience. Camp Mondam is an all-boys camp. I cherish that experience in those years. Part of it was, as I mentioned, there is a very successful independent all-girls middle school in the area called Hanger Hall. So part of it was just market niche, realizing that void needed to be filled. I think it depends on what you want for your outcomes. But I've learned, and I've taught for years in a co-ed setting, but you can create an entirely different classroom culture and therefore academic outcomes in a split gender setting. The behaviors and things that get in the way of academic instruction in the co-ed classroom, especially during the middle school years, can be eliminated in a split gender setting. And I could speak at length, but other benefits are addressing toxic masculinity and deconstructing gender stereotypes. We spend a lot of time in our advisory groups and as a whole school talking about what it means to be male or female, and how we can model safe, appropriate behaviors and be positive role models for the young boys and girls. There are a lot of benefits, and I think we're the only school that has a split gender boys or a split gender girls. There are a lot of single-sex schools across the country, but it's very rare, and I don't know of another school that has both a boys and a girls program now. That's a very unique thing I learned.
Hi, I had a question too. Thank you so much. I did a study abroad in college, and it was the best experience ever. I think the world could be a more peaceful place if we just went international and commingled with each other. I know the tuition could possibly be a challenge, but do you have a vision of being able to bring Costa Ricans to your school or be able to benefit them that way?
Yes, and we have done that. We've had Costa Rican students come to Asheville, stay with our families, and create a true exchange experience. Once again, to our revenue beyond tuition dollars, that's going to create the capacity to do more of that, because it's one thing for these schools in San Jose that have the assets to travel internationally, but if we can get these kids in rural Cobano, Costa Rica to Asheville, that would be an incredible thing. And I agree, obviously, wholeheartedly on the perspective you gain from international travel and what that would do to the world if everybody had that type of experience.
A lot of them.
I love what you're doing, the international part and everything like that. My question goes back to the split gender part, because this is Asheville, it is 2023, the non-binary generation is merging, and so, how do you address that? I mean, I love that you're addressing toxic masculinity, but there is a growing, it's been there, but it's identifying more out in the public now, so the non-binary population.
that's something we have put a lot of recent work and effort into, because I think a lot of people assume as a split gender program that we would be a more traditional approach and probably not as open or willing. Like, you are binary because we have a boys program and a girls program. We do have students and staff that identify as they, or that identify differently than their sex born at birth. We have a section on our website that kind of spells out our equity, diversity, and inclusion policy and philosophy. So we do have kids on the spectrum, and they would apply to the program that they most identify with. It would be a conversation with that family and making sure that they understand that we embrace the benefits of what we can do in a split gender program at either program. And we would want to make sure that that's protected and cherished, and that still happens, but at the same time being open and welcome. And so I'm not saying we're a finished product, and we've totally figured that out, but that is a huge priority for our board and me and our program to make sure that this type of experience is available to any student, regardless of identity.
I really want to thank for that previous question. Great question, and what a good answer. Thank you. We met a couple months ago and chatted, so I'm really happy to see the whole presentation. As an aside to the earlier question, I just want to make a shout out to the high school my son attended, Franklin, which is a charter school. It's an experiential learning.
Yep.
And so there are options that are closer to this program than a public school, which can also be a great choice.
Yeah.
Okay, so my question relates to the economic engine part. If somebody in the audience were looking to start an education-focused business, do you have just a couple pieces of advice?
So let me skip ahead, because part of what Erica asked me to talk about were things I would do differently. Seed money. It didn't really occur to me that we needed health insurance or that we needed some funds for vans that we could buy and not use donated Pontiac minivans. We just started, we had one family that wrote a tuition check for the whole year, and at the time that was $8,500. And the co-founder, David Byers, and I were just like, we couldn't believe that this family trusted us, because everybody was like, we're going month by month. But they signed up, and our economic model, we needed 12 students. We had 6, but we just, and I didn't talk about the mentality piece, but we were just in a failures, not an option mentality, and we knew if we focused on the student and the student experience, we would fill the other 6 spots. So by October of 2009, that first year, we had 12 students, and that allowed us to continue to operate and pay rent. I mean, this was 2009, the worst economic moment of my life, and we were able to succeed. But I think having some seed money from, as a 501c3 nonprofit entity, it would have been a lot easier to secure some funds to ensure that we had some benefits other than a tiny salary and some other key things that we just did without. We're just extremely resourceful and found a way to make it happen. Yeah. And then the others was, I don't have time to talk about it, but I would have done some marketing as well and make sure you're getting folks outside your existing network, but I'll hold off on that.
How about one more question? Who's got the zinger, the final zinger question?
It's not a singer, but I have a question. Oh, okay, so you said you're planning on expanding to 9th grade.
Yes.
Are you going to expand throughout high school? And if not, why? What is the roadblock to doing all of high school?
No, because upper level high school gets extremely complicated with having to offer AP level classes, counseling services, and other things. I won't say never. I think it would take a very passionate, hedgehog-driven individual that would want to actually do that program. But as I said earlier, middle school is my jam. I think the 9th grade program makes sense on a lot of different levels. But when you get to this sophomore, junior, and senior year, to be competitive, in my opinion, you do have to have the critical mass and the staffing to offer a lot of different specialized classes. And so much of our secret sauce is the relationship between the student and the teacher, and having that in multiple different contexts. And I think you would lose a lot of that with a bigger high school model. Yeah.
All right, hey everybody, put the hands together. Thank you so much.